Hey everybody, it's Dana from the blog This Yellow Farmhouse, and today I wanted to take you through my 5 favorite things that I've knit in 2021 and also what I'm dreaming to cast on into 2022. So a quick recap of my 2021 knitting is that I took a really pretty long break in there because I was pregnant, and then I really started getting into sock knitting. And I also started practicing knitting English style and throwing the yarn over the needle, which before I kind of was doing a modified version of. I was taught by a left-handed knitter, and so my knitting has always looked a little bit different. And so just working on my own personal growth as a knitter this year has been something that I've really been focusing on. So most of my all-time favorite knits are actually from this past year. I have designed 2 sock patterns, got really into sock knitting, got really into discovering new hand-dyed yarn, and I really just feel like I'm starting to find my knitting style, which is great. So I'm going to share with you my 5 favorite things that I've knit this year. If you want a bigger list of things that I've knit, I will link the 31 knits in 31 years video that I made. And we're just going to dive into my favorites, and then I will share with you what I am just so excited to cast on this next year. Now I will insert pictures and videos where I can to show footage of what I was knitting and what it looked like once I was done. So my favorite knit of the year, number 1, is the Millie tank top by MillaMia. I loved making this little vest for our little baby boy, and although I have done a little bit of basic Fair Isle knitting, it's been with chunkier yarn, so this was my first go at it with finger weight yarn, which I really loved. I loved doing the color work. I've never done actual pictures like that. I've done more Fair Isle, a little bit of color changes here and there to make like the little V hearts, you know, that basic Fair Isle stitch, that kind of thing. But I really haven't gone into in-depth color work where it creates this whole picture, and so this vest was one of my favorites, not only because it represented our little baby boy, but also because it was just so much fun to watch it work up. And once I got past the initial fear of changing colors and worrying about if my floats were too tight or loose, it was such a joy to knit, and I'm so glad that I just did it and wasn't too afraid to try something new with that. Okay, my favorite knit, number 2, was when I was fairly new at knitting socks with fingering weight yarn. And so I used this, one of my new favorite yarn dyers is Mandy's Makings, and I used her yarn from a Share-A-Pair, and I went loosely based off of a pattern from the Crazy Sock Lady, and I altered it into some shorty socks that also had a cable in the front. So I made it a little bit more me with the cable, and I just love how these socks turned out. They're some of my favorites. I think they're just the perfect amount of crazy colored and neutral and cable knit for me, and it was also really fun to work through this pattern. Okay, my favorite knit number 3 from this past year are the Sweet Cider socks. So these are worsted weight cabin socks that I designed, and I've been a cabin sock lover for so long. I really loved designing these ones with the chunkier cables, and I just love it. It reminds me of fall, but when I knit it in a gray color, it also is very wintry, and it's just neutral. It's tweedy, and it's so squishy, and I love it. So I use the Knit Picks Wool of the Andes, and I love using tweed, and I also learned to block my socks because I never was a sock blocker before. Even though I had been knitting socks, I never really understood. I was kind of under the impression that just because I wore it and then washed it and then wore it, I was kind of blocking it with my feet just by wearing it. But when I blocked these Sweet Cider socks, it changed everything. The cables puffed out, and they were so squishy, and it was nice and defined, and I loved it so much. These are some of my absolute favorite socks. Okay, favorite knit number 4 from this past year is the Campfire sweater by Darling Jador. Now, this designer has yet to make something that I don't like, and I mean, she's kind of mysterious, this mysterious online person who doesn't very much show her face, and so I think part of that adds to the allure, but also her designs are gorgeous. And I knit up her Campfire sweater using Knit Picks Tough Puff in the color Bark. And I just love this sweater. It's like a warm hug. It was so relaxing to knit. It's all garter stitch and very easy shaping, easy seaming. It's so warm and cozy. And I can just tell it's going to be for sure one of my staples. Okay, my fifth favorite thing that I have knit in 2021 are these simple cozy socks by Joji Locatelli. Now, I love Joji's designs. She does a lot of sweaters that I love, but I'm not very much of a garment sweater knitter. It's just not something I have time to make. I would love to make more of, but I love her style and I love her designs. And so when I saw her simple cozy socks, they were actually one of my first fingering weight socks that I decided to take on. And I really loved the sky blue color of the Cascade 220 that I chose. I thought the cables were so tiny and delicate and also really cozy. And this was just such a fun project for me to knit. And also one of those things that I'm just glad to have in my sock drawer forever. And I do plan to make for sure more pairs of these in other colors. So as I continue in learning knitting techniques and just gaining confidence in myself and not being pregnant this upcoming year, I feel like my knitting world has opened up so much for 2022. And so I have a long list of what I would love to make, but I'm trying to pare it down. So I'm very excited to cast some new things on for 2022 for myself, for my kids. I've also come to the realization after baby number 4 that I can pass on my hand knits from kid to kid. So before, I kind of thought I didn't want to spend time and money and yarn knitting something for my kids if they were going to outgrow it so quickly, because we all know babies and kids grow so fast. But I have also really come to the realization that I have 4 kids, and so that is 4 chances for these things that I'm knitting them to fit different kids. And so I'm really excited to dive into knitting things that are a little more of an investment for my kids, a little bit more to add to their capsule wardrobe. So knit sweaters and dresses and things like that. And I'm excited to, it kind of feels freeing, because where before I kind of thought frugal me was like, well, I'll just go buy something like a $5 shirt, instead of thinking down the road, well, when somebody doesn't fit in this shirt anymore or this sweater, I get to pass it on 3 more times to all my different kids, and then possibly to grandkids or nieces, nephews, that kind of thing. And so I feel like that has been really eye-opening, and now I want to knit all of the kid things also. So my 2022 makes, I'm going to try to keep this to just things from other designers that I want to knit from. I do plan on having some patterns released this coming year, but just for the sake of already knowing in my brain and seeing the picture and buying the pattern, just knowing that that pattern is already out there and I'm just going to follow it is really exciting. So the first things on my list are actually 7 things, because we are now a family of 7 if you include our puppy. And so I'm making some Christmas stockings from the designer Ursula Almeida. And so the stockings that I chose are called the Ginger Mint, the Holiday Shallot, Steamer Train, Snowy Mountains, Vintage Toys, Fresh Pine, and then the Dasher and Dancer. And so everyone in our family is going to have a stocking that kind of goes together but is a little bit different. I'm using all the same yarn. I'm using the Knit Picks palette, and I'm so excited. I have a plan of attack because it was recommended to me, thank you so much, that if I work on these for 30 minutes a day, I can finish 1 stocking about per month. And so knowing that, hopefully I can have these all done, that's the goal, by Christmas 2022. So that right there feels like a lot of knitting already, and I really want to focus on that, but I do want to branch out into, like I said, a few different kinds of things. One of those being from the designer Darling Jador. I already bought the pattern, I already have the yarn. I'm going to be knitting her classic camisole, and I love this pattern because it just looks elegant but cozy, and our house gets very hot in the summer. I'm always wearing tank tops even at night, and I think that this will be such a great piece to add for during the summertime in our farmhouse. Okay, my next dream knit of 2022 is from Andrea Mowry. It is her Winter Honey Shawl, and I've had this, you guys, in my Ravelry library for probably 3 years now, and I haven't done anything with it. I haven't knit anything. I actually have never knit a shawl, And so part of the reason why I chose this is because I love her as a designer, and I also have never done a shawl. So I'd love to kind of pick up some knitting techniques by doing something different and some different shaping. Okay, my next 2022 dream knit is my first sweater that will be fingering weight yarn, and that is the Anker sweater by Petite knits. So like I said, I'm not much of a sweater or garment knitter, but I have done a few sweaters all in either bulky or super bulky yarn, and so I'm really excited to this year pick up something that's fingering weight and really learn some new sweater making skills through that. And plus, this sweater is just gorgeous. It's a classic, and I feel like it'll just be something that I can wear anytime. Alright, my last dream knit of 2022 is the Dansa elk dress by MillaMia. Now, I had so much fun making the Millie tank top by MillaMia and doing color work on that for our little baby boy that I'm going to be making some Christmas dresses for our 3 girls. And these are so cute. Like I said, 2021 me would have said, no, it's not worth making a knit dress for my daughter who will wear it for a year. But now I'm realizing I can recycle and go through all my kids and let them all have a turn wearing them in the different sizes. So I'm really excited to cast on a little sweater dress for the girls. So I hope this list of dream knits is inspiring to you and helps you remember to dream big and enjoy the knitting process. Try something new, something totally out of your comfort zone. And thank you guys for watching this video. Comment below, what are your dream knits for 2022? I would love to hear them.